At the moment I start typing this, it is just after the hearings of GOP SCOTUS pick Brett Kavanaugh and his sexual assault accuser Christine Ford. I was originally going to wait to post this after we knew whether he would be confirmed or not, but since it just got delayed a week in favor of a 7th FBI investigation, that's right, 7th. I straight up can't wait that long. These thoughts need to get out of my head and onto the internet. You'll remember that Kavanaugh had multiple allegations of sexual assault, but none of those other people got hearings because either A, their stories were so shaky and full of holes it was an affront to the system to even give them a microphone, B, one of the accusations was sent in anonymously from an anonymous source who talks about anonymous people who would like to remain anonymous, C, another letter was proven to be as uncredible as it gets when the sender recanted on Twitter saying, "Oops, I made a mistake," on an account littered with anti-Trump tweets, or D, Michael Avenatti is full of shit and nobody is listening to him because he's a political grifter who brings wild charges forward, and then when asked about them on TV interviews he agrees to on the premise of discussing the wild charges, he decides he doesn't want to share more information and dodges questions relating to the topic he is on there to talk about. Michael Avenatti is garbage. Let's get that one out of the way early. He is in this solely to curry favor for a 2020 presidential run against Trump, which he talked about at the MTV Movie Awards, which is where you go to talk about that. He wants to come off as the only guy in the Democratic Party that can finally take down Trump. And he gets this across by being mean sometimes on Twitter. Avenatti's claim to fame, of course, is that he is porn star and presidential mistress Stormy Daniels' former lawyer. Or is he still her lawyer? What else would she need a lawyer for now? I mean, maybe she'll get sued for saying Trump's dick looks like Toad from Mario Kart, when I think we all know it's more of a Wario. If Stormy Daniels was a Mario character, she'd be Birdo for sure. If you don't know who that is, look it up and laugh instantly. But Michael Avenatti actually is dangerous as a political Democrat because he has nothing to lose. He's just a lawyer, he has no political reputation to stake anything on, he can go the extra mile that seasoned politicians won't go. He's basically the Trump of Trump derangement syndrome. He is the left's outsider, the one who's going to come in and shake up the system, but in the Democrats' favor this time. After Trump's win in 2016, the left may think they have to play on the same level to get results. And if they're looking for an aggressive candidate who can go insult for insult against Trump without holding back on the bounds of political civility, I don't see anyone else that fits that description. The only issue for Democrats rallying behind him is they would have to admit, or face hypocrisy, that experience doesn't matter as long as you're doing presidential shit that benefits your party. Personally, I'd rather vote for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He talked about running a few years ago. Now there's a guy that could command an Oval Office. And if anyone tried to give him shit, he'd just give them that smoldering action hero look and they'd shut the hell up. Donald Trump is in the White House. Experience is a non-starter now. The floodgates are open. Let the musicians, actors, and comedians of the world trip over each other to get on that ballot. Who knows what'll happen by the time I'm 35. Maybe there'll be some kind of unbiased political party fueled by outside apathy that can come in and make unattached decisions for the good of the most. But back to the hearings. First off, there's no question that this is one of the most talked about on social media political instances of all time. When it was trending, I saw like 3 million tweets that mentioned either Ford or Kavanaugh. I've never seen anything trend over 1 million before. Hurricane Florence didn't trend over 1 million. I wonder if the 2016 election even trended that high. I'm sure it did. This is clearly an issue that strikes a chord, especially with Hollywood actresses, because Alyssa Milano was in the background during the proceedings making faces at Kavanaugh the whole time. Very classy, very tasteful. She was invited for some reason. This is the disconnect between sides here, because everyone who watched Ford's part of the hearings, left or right, came away with it thinking she definitely seemed like she at least thought she was telling the truth, that she wasn't just stone-faced lying to serve an agenda. Her emotions are credible, even if her story still doesn't have any corroborated evidence whatsoever. And by corroborated, I mean more than just, yes, there are people who can attest that Ford told them about what she thought happened. That's not a corroboration. If my uncle tells me 9/11 was an inside job and I attest to the fact that he did in fact tell me that, that doesn't create evidence that 9/11 was truly an inside job. Although maybe it was, I don't know. Can jet fuel melt steel beams? The point is, we all believe Ford has been through something. We also know that memory fails, that the brain often creates false pieces of the past to fill gaps, and that even eyewitness accounts of something that happened 30 minutes ago aren't always reliable, much less 30 some odd years. I don't want to suggest that Ford would do this for fame or fortune, because I don't believe she would. but it is worth noting someone set up a GoFundMe for security for Ford that is currently, as I type this, sitting at around $500,000. This rivals Peter Strzok in my mind. She might not have wanted this, but I find this amount ridiculous. For security? What is she, Berkeley? I want to go on a slight tangent here that in no way applies to my feelings about Dr. Ford, but this has just occurred to me and it's worth mentioning. GoFundMe has created an easy avenue for people to bribe individuals with public money. So if any politicians were to hire someone as a political operative or bribe someone into telling a story that would cause damage to an opponent of theirs, they could just whisper in their progeny's ear, you know, people often set up GoFundMes to help people like you, to make sure they're taken care of. Again, I'm not saying anybody did that with Ford, but if they did, that's how they do it nowadays. Now maybe they did it with Ramirez or Swetnick, the other two named accusers of Kavanaugh, whose stories are even less corroborated than Ford's uncorroborated story, but nobody's given them a hearing, so they haven't had much of a chance to earn their keep, as they say. But back to what I was saying about the disconnect between sides here, because like I said, most people on the right, and also me, have little doubt that Ford's emotions are real. We just think Democratic politicians swooped in to take advantage of her confusion for political gain. But nobody on the left has any concessions to give Kavanaugh, who at times was just as raw and emotional, including being moved to tears talking about how this has impacted his family. That performance was met with sneers from the Alyssa Milanos of the world who just want men in positions of power to struggle, innocent or not. Kavanaugh encapsulates everything they hate. He's straight, white, male, financially and opportunity privileged, and he likes beer. All Kavanaugh could talk about was beer. All anyone asked him about was beer. He even drinks during weekdays. Yeah, it's called summer. Boof doesn't mean fart. Oh, is that where we're at in the discourse? Debating flatulence terminology? Wow. Hey, were you ever a kid and invented a word for yourself or a group of friends to use as an inside thing? If you've ever read the book Frindle by Andrew Clements, that's literally what that's about, and then they turn it into $1 million idea. Boof doesn't mean fart. It doesn't mean fuck either. Yo, bro, you boofed that bitch last night? Hell yeah, I boofed the boof out of her, bro. Boof, yeah, nice, bro. Go boof yourself. The Devil's Triangle isn't a drinking game. I didn't know you knew all of them, even those that are invented in-house by local frat communities. I'm not somebody who expected Kavanaugh's calendars from 1982 to exonerate him, but the line of questioning surrounding them was patently absurd. And then all anyone can talk about after the hearing was how it seemed weird that a guy would get angry over being constantly called a gang rapist by the media for weeks. Every Democratic senator or commentator who pulled that, gosh, he seems angry line. I mean, I assume they'd greet sexual assault allegations with love in their heart and a winning smile. Haha, these allegations are false. I still love you, though. Again, go boof yourself. Anger is the proper response to last-minute allegations materializing out of thin air after 6 FBI background checks have already been completed on you to smear your character in an impersonal partisan attempt to wrest control of the Supreme Court out of your party's hands when the Democrats are projected to have a strong chance to retake the House majority in the midterms. This whole thing had the opportunity to be executed privately like most SCOTUS vetting does, and like Kavanaugh's previous meetings had been, when Senate officials told Ford's legal representation weeks ago they'd be willing to send people to meet with her in California confidentially, which is what Ford wanted in the first place. But Ford said in her sworn testimony that her legal counsel never told her that was an option. They also would have told her not to watch the news, where that offer was also made public, under the guise of protecting her mental health because she wouldn't want to get caught up in what people were already saying about her. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the left wanted this to be very public, where it could be as damaging as possible and result in this circus of trained SEALs all grandstanding in front of the cameras to look as impassioned as possible. Commentators who have worked on appointment decisions in the past even said that behind closed doors, things like this get done in a much more bipartisan way. Pleasant, fair, but once the American people are watching, it's time to break out those high school theater chops and campaign for yourselves. So right about here is the timestamp where I learned that the confirmation will be delayed another week because one of the undecided Republican senators, Jeff Flake, has called for another FBI investigation after listening for 8 hours yesterday to Democrats doing nothing but calling for another FBI investigation. Now on the surface, this seems to neuter the Democrats' most central talking point of this whole thing, but even if they they find no further evidence against Kavanaugh, it would be naive to think they'd just bow their heads in approval and say, you may continue without any more fuss. There are literally already Democrats tweeting, 1 week isn't long enough, when that's the exact amount of time every Democratic senator was trying to get Kavanaugh himself to ask for an FBI investigation. Just turn to Don McGahn and ask him for 1 week. They specified 1 week every single time, and now look at them, already wanting more. What this does do, however, is give Avenatti another week to spam senators with emails about his client, Julie Swetnick, and try desperately to get her in front of a microphone. This is a woman who Avenatti said we must respect her privacy and make sure she is protected, right after he tweeted her name and photo out to the world. That's like saying, this is Julie Swetnick. She has information against a prominent mob boss. She's going into witness protection and her new name will be Mario Lopez. Make sure she's protected and respect her privacy. Send a tweet. This guy is as sleazy as it gets. Nobody should trust him to represent anyone. For the record, Julie is the one who Avenatti said accused Kavanaugh of organizing gang rapes, except it turns out she didn't say that, she's just accusing him of being there, and yet the media still runs with the more salacious headline. The most notable thing about what we already know of her account is she says there was a consistent culture of men spiking the punch and gang raping women at high school parties. Despite this, she says she went to 10 of them. 10 parties! Where it was supposedly known that women get drugged and gang raped on a regular basis, and she was just like, sure, let's party, I won't say nothing. I don't know about you, but if I went to a party where people were getting gang raped, I probably wouldn't go to 9 more of them. After the 3rd one, I'd be like, I'm sensing a pattern. And after the 9th one, you must just go to the party organizer like, yeah, which room are the gang rapes happening in? I'ma steer clear of that shit. If it sounds absurd, you've landed on the theme for this whole situation. From where I'm standing, it seems like if the FBI doesn't discover anything, Kavanaugh will be confirmed and nobody will be able to have anything else to say about it. Though you can be sure, they will still say things. Maybe we'll see Julie Swetnick have her turn in the spotlight and see Democrats calling for another delay, which would lay their hand bare for more people to see at least. The midterms are November 6th, which is just a little over a month away. The right still has time, but it's running out, and who knows what else the left has up their sleeve. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Sunburned Albino, and you can support the channel on Patreon at patreon.com/sunburnedalbino, which is kind of like a GoFundMe, but I don't need security. And I'll see you guys next time.